Hello once again, it's Matthew here from Matthewnorthmusic. Thank you for watching my latest video. And as ever, if you like the kind of videos I make, be them about music, electronics, retro technology, anything like that, then please think about hitting the subscribe button. It really does help the channel to grow. And if you hit the little bell icon as well, then you will be notified of the next video that gets published. Now, I'm doing a series at the moment about 1984 Greatest Year in Pop ? And each month I'll be doing an update on what was happening on that month in 1984. But one thing that kind of feeds into that story really is what I'm going to talk about today, which is the USA for Africa, We Are the World song. And that obviously was the American follow-up to the Band-Aid single, which kind of ended 1984. And there's this new documentary on Netflix called The Greatest Day in Pop, Story of We Are the World. Now, for me, would I say that was the greatest day in pop? And it's like, no, it isn't. Live Aid is the greatest day in pop in my lifetime, as far as I'm concerned. But needless to say, the USA for Africa record has never really gone down as being the great moment that Band-Aid was. Firstly, because it wasn't the first, it was the second. But also, there's always been lots of different stories about it that have come out over the years. And certainly Bob Geldof himself was very critical when he was over there seeing it being recorded, because it was a record meant for the starving in Africa, and there was this like well over the top massive buffet there and drinks, and you know, it was like, you know, a royal sort of a royal knees up, if you like. And also people have always been divided on that song as to, was it really done for the right reasons? Was it a genuine idea to make another charity record to help Africa, or was it more a big famous artist kind of ego boost? Look at us, look at how great we are. You know, if you like, it could be seen as the original virtue signaling event, if you like, because it was A-list pop stars saying, hey, look at us, aren't we great helping people? And you know, and the record had to go on for 7 minutes to fit all those people's little spots in, because I think a lot of them, if they only got to sing 2 words, it wouldn't have been enough. That's kind of how it has been viewed, and I would say I kind of probably view it in a similar way. It did feel to me at the time as if it was just, you know, well, they've done this, we better do something, and we're going to make it better, because not only is our record going to be twice as long, but we're going to make an album as well. And that's one thing I kind of thought with the Band-Aid record. Should they have made a Band-Aid album as well? But then the USA for Africa album was basically the title track with a load of leftover tracks from the other artists that they hadn't used for anything, so they just shoved it on this. So yeah, it's not something really that's been, you know, revered as much as obviously the original Band-Aid record was. But anyway, there's this new documentary. It's been released today on Netflix. Now, I don't have Netflix, but I've signed up for a month for the cheap version, obviously. And I thought I'd give it a watch and see if it's changes my mind about how I feel about the record from how I thought about it, you know, 39 3/4 of a year ago, and also whether the documentary is worth watching, and you know, and how people come out about it. So I've filmed this before I've watched it, and I will give you my thoughts after I've watched it. Well, it's actually the next day now, because it was late when I finished watching it last night. And what did I think of it? Well, there's a lot to this story I didn't know. In fact, most of what was in the film I didn't know. It was all new stuff. I think that's probably because I've never really seen a proper documentary ever made about the USA for Africa record before. And it's quite extraordinary how the film was made. Now, there's going to be a lot of spoilers in my description, so if you don't want to know what happens, then go and watch it and then come back afterwards. But in essence, it all had to be made in one evening, and it was made the same day as the American Music Awards were done, which Lionel Richie had to host. So he hosted this awards ceremony, performed at this awards ceremony. It was all done by about 8:30, 9 o'clock. And then everyone piled onto the A&M studio to record this track. And it was, you actually see it, and there's a sign on the door that Quincy Jones put up saying, check egos at the door. And that kind of worked, but it didn't, because I think everybody still wanted to be, you know, a star. But what was interesting, from all the clips that were in it, the only person who you could kind of tell was definitely doing it because they thought it would improve their career is probably Cyndi Lauper. Because she kind of says a line where it's like, you know, oh, well, I knew this could be really, really big. And it's like, yeah, big for you rather than for the event. But there was one moment in there where Geldof pipes up and tells them basically why they're doing this record. And I think then that gave people focus. Because, you know, it is a 7-minute track, and to have recorded all those parts in one session after they'd all been to an awards ceremony earlier in the evening, many of which had performed, was, you know, it was no mean feat, it has to be said. And actually, if you look at the enormity of stars that were in that room, I mean, we are talking mostly stadium level artists, certainly large arena artists. There was nobody smaller than that in that room. They were all A-list. You know, when you get people like Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan, Michael Jackson, Tina Turner, Dionne Warwick, you know, we're talking huge names. And the way it worked, there was actually quite a bit of camaraderie between the different artists performing. And, you know, you could tell from the interviews, you know, certainly people like Huey Lewis felt like he was really out of his depth, especially when he, you know, was with, you know, Springsteen and all these various other people. But, you know, the finished record, you know, as I said earlier, you know, it is a song that kind of goes on a bit. But then if you look at it as a piece of musical history, then actually I would say I look at this record in a different light now, and I actually consider it to be much more of an important piece because of the fact it is a gathering of all these huge stars. I mean, two of the people that I think kept everyone's spirits up during the recording was Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder, because, you know, they were really keeping people happy, and they were laughing and joking. And there's a lovely bit where Stevie's playing the song acoustically on the piano. What they did was, when they recorded it, they did all the chorus sections first, and then they did all the individual lines afterwards. I think that's how they did the Band-Aid record as well. They got all the choruses and the big stuff done first. And of course, all of this was being filmed at the same time because they were making the music video. And because it's a music video for television, they of course had lighting in there. So it was like a lit set. So, you know, the musicians, they were having to learn the song, and they were playing under lights, and they were being filmed. So it's actually quite a lot of pressure, especially when you're doing your solo parts, and you know everybody's watching you, or your peers are watching you, and you might only get 1 or 2 takes at actually doing it, which was, you know, pretty difficult, even if you're a top level artist. And it was really nice. They talk about the pre-production they did, and basically Lionel Richie and Michael Jackson wrote the melody and the tune, and then they had to demo it in the studio. So they probably, I'm guessing that the backing track that they used for their demo was probably the same backing track that was used on the finished record, or if not, it would have been very similar. And they actually had to post cassettes to everybody involved and their management. And you think now, you would just send one email with one MP3 attachment and some documents, and that would be it. And they actually had to send this stuff in the post. They actually had to wait, you know, a few days to make sure everybody was on board and that everyone was going to turn up at the place. And they were also quite secretive about where the recording was taking place, because they obviously didn't want the press turning up. Because something as big as that, they're just not, you know, then they're just not going to want any interruption. And as it stood, they kind of kept it quiet up until a certain point, and then I think Lionel Richie got asked about it at a press call at the American Music Awards, and he said, yeah, we're working on a song called We Are the World, and that was it. But yeah, it's a good little documentary, and it's also nice that they kept all the original archive material in its original 4:3 aspect ratio, and they actually cropped all the interviews, so the whole thing's made in 4:3. Interestingly, if you watch the trailer, all the clips are in 16:9, and then all the archive is in 4:3. So they obviously decided just to crop the whole lot to keep it consistent, I guess. But it doesn't detract at all. You know, it's just a TV program about something that happened nearly 40 years ago. And yeah, it was a really, really good documentary. Really enjoyed it. So I definitely recommend going to see it. And I think you would definitely see this record in a new light, as I certainly have done. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please think about liking and subscribing, and I'll catch you on the next one.